Welcome to the latest episode of Athlete to Athlete here on Sportsnet. My name is Arash Madani. We're gathering some of our country's top high-performance stars in association with the Canadian Olympic Committee. These competitors will tell their stories of life during the pandemic, how they're adjusting to the postponement of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and opening up on the relevant social issues of the day. You know, there's a legitimate water cooler argument to be made that no week at any Summer Olympics was bigger for Canada than Donovan Bailey's at Atlanta in 1996. On the final July Saturday that year, he became the world's fastest man, running the 100 in a world record 9.84. On the opening Saturday of August, he anchored the 4x100 relay team to gold on a steamy Saturday night in Georgia. To beat the Americans in their own backyard and doing so, icing on the cake. Now, the topic of race and sport was not on the forefront then as much as it is now, but it was very important to Bailey, who used his platform to discuss it. In the lead up to Atlanta, he told Sports Illustrated that yes, racism does exist in Canada, and Bailey said people who don't appear to be Canadian, people of color, don't get the same treatment. Donovan even wondered aloud, will Canada love a black athlete? Aaron Brown represents one of this generation's sprinting hopefuls. He was on the podium when Canada won bronze at Rio 2016 in the 4x100, and it took 20 years for a Canadian relay team to break the national record set in Atlanta. Brown and company were the ones to do it. Now right here, Brown and Bailey connect in a very real conversation on Athlete2Athlete.
So you said that you called out racism, right? And you felt like the organization didn't support you the way you wanted. I guess this is two parts. First of all, what did you expect them to do for you that they weren't doing? And the second part is, if you were an athlete today and you were going to call them out again, is that the type of person you would be on social media? Because, you know, it's a way different beast having social media and being an athlete today. And then back in the day when we didn't have it, you know, you have a much easier platform to express yourself and just give direct to consumer what you're thinking.
So yeah, just let me answer both parts. Like I called out racism 24 years ago because I was the #1 sprinter in the world, not just a Canadian, but I was the #1 sprinter in the world. So I had an incredible platform that people were listening. So the people that listened were my friends at the IAAF or the IOC. The people that were not listening were at Athletics Canada and the COC. And so for that, obviously, I mean, I'm blackballed, I'm an arrogant guy. And really all I wanted 24 years ago was to have a conversation with the senior people. I'm like, I'm a black man and my my life, or, it's probably not the same as every black man. I grew up in Oakville, my parents middle class. I mean, I didn't get harassed by the cops, but I hear what my friends are telling me and I hear things that were happening. So at the end of the day, I'm like, hey man, there's also support that some athletes, some black athletes were not getting from some of the sports organization in Canada that white athletes were. And so I want to have a conversation to bring that forward. 24 years ago, nobody was listening, right? And no one wanted to speak to me. And of course, it's Canada. So they're used to athletes coming in and obeying and going about their business. They knew that I was someone completely different. And for that, I never had a great relationship with them. I think that obviously hopefully we're taking a turn now.
Yeah.
So to your second question, man, listen, I think that I'm probably, obviously I was 24 years too early, right? I love the fact that you have a platform where you can say, my name is Aaron Brown, and here's what I believe in. I was asked the other day about the IOC thing regarding protests and athletes. And I'm saying, I mean, and I'll say to Thomas Bach myself, I'll say directly to him, my man, that's the old playbook, right? At the end of the day, every single athlete, first of all, don't disrupt your competition. Yeah. So if you're going into the 100-meter finals at the Olympic Games, Go in, run the 100-meter finals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're jogging around the track and you want to protest, do that. If you want to do that when you're on the podium, do that. But your competition, because obviously this is TV and there's a lot of things, don't disrupt your actual competition. That's the only advice I'd give to you and other athletes today. But absolutely use your voice. I love the fact that there's freedom now, but more importantly today about the Black Lives Matter thing. People are listening, right? I love the fact that like you're millennial and you're like you guys, the future leaders of the world. I'm loving it that you guys don't care. You've got a voice and you're using it. How has it affected you? The Black Lives Matter movement in 2020.
I think it's been a good sign. For a long time, our people, Black people, have been oppressed. And that's something that people don't really touch upon in mainstream society because it's not something that's comfortable for a lot of people. But I think when you have movements like the Black Lives Matter movement, you get people to talk about the uncomfortable things and put them in positions where they otherwise would have just kicked it down the can. And sometimes people aren't even aware. So the more awareness you can have around these things, the better it is. People retort with all lives matter. You can't have all lives mattering without Black lives mattering. So, right. It's kind of like a backwards retort, but at the end of the day, everybody just wants equality, or most people do, that want the best for their society. We all want to progress. We don't want to be in the same position where we were, in the 60s when you have Tommy Smith on the podium putting his fist up trying to raise awareness, to 96 when you're speaking out against racial injustice. We're in 2020 now, 24 years later, and we're still having to talk about it. So my hope is that when I have my kids, their generation doesn't have to talk about these things anymore and spread the awareness. It's already been spread. We have change coming, and we'll get to a place where everybody feels like they're heard and they matter. As a young Canadian sprinter growing up and idolizing, the greats that have done it before me, I always wondered about 96 and like what your mindset was going into those races, taking it round by round and like how you're able to, because out in 96, I believe that was where they had like 2 or 3 false starts before the race actually went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not only that.
Yeah.
It's not only that.
Take me to it.
But 1996 is it's an absolute unique story because so first was the racist thing that I had to deal with, and that was a big media thing. And I guess if there was Twitter then, that would have been trending for for a long while. I tore my left adductor with my last competition in Nice, going into Atlanta. So we had to fix that. Saturday morning, the day of the finals, there was a bomb. I've done 2 rounds. There's a bombing that day.
How'd you stay in the zone and not get too overly stressed and like start worrying about all these other extracurricular things that you can't even control?
I think one of the things that Dan and I always did, and we did this in training, we looked at and trained for every single scenario. False starts. Obviously you can't train for a bombing because no one knew that. That's just crazy, right? But false starts, rain, headwind, certainly, every single scenario they can possibly think about. So because I trained for that, and of course, as you know, when you do things monotonously and repetitively in practice, it just becomes learned behavior. So when I got to the finals, it was just, okay, you know what? Linford double false started, then Otto did. And I'm like, and I think I said to the guys at the time, just relax, man. The race is going to be over in a minute, right? Again, you guys don't chirp like we did, and then I got a horrible start. I was the 6th guy out of the blocks, and so I thought, don't panic. So I just kind of got back into the zone again, where I have to get into rhythm, just so I could catch them. And then at 80, I knew I won, and then it was kind of like, trying to kind of stay and breathe and not panic at the Olympic Games. That's kind of where it happened. I guess I'm not in a situation like y'all where you're in the middle of getting ready for the biggest competition of your life, man. How How has this pandemic, how has it affected you?
Oh, it's been wild. You know, when the wave first hit, we had to, stay on the track as long as we could, but then eventually we got kicked off. So we're just bouncing around from place to place. We first went to a soccer field, and then that got closed down. So we went to a park, and we're just running on like uneven grass, and there's potholes, and it was not ideal, obviously, but we had to make do and just do what we could just to bridge the gap and stay fit somehow. So if there was any season that comes out, we at least have an opportunity to race a couple times and call it a season. We can't just take off like half a year and then expect to be in tip-top shape come next year. So we got to do something to, fill the time.
Fill the time amidst the unknown of when the next competition may be, on how to properly prepare for it. Wasn't that conversation something? Aaron Brown hanging on every word that Bailey offered of how Donovan handled situations and anxieties and the adversities of competing at the highest level in the most pressure-packed of moments. I remember speaking with Bailey after the 2016 Olympics, and he said to me, "You watch, Andre and Aaron are going to dominate in Tokyo." Speaking of Brown and Andre DeGrasse, who of course won 3 medals in Rio. Next thing you know, World Championships last year, and only 2 sprinters qualified for the finals of both the 100 and 200 meters, DeGrasse and Brown. Our Athlete to Athlete series continues on the ice. In our next episode, we will visit with hockey players who require little introduction. You remember Marie-Philippe Poulin. She scored the game-winning goals for Canada, both at Vancouver 2010 and then again at Sochi 2014 to knock off the USA. Poulin and Shane Doan connect on the next episode of Athlete to Athlete. Until then, I'm Arash Madani. Thank you for watching.